my buddy Dan Shinder, who is the CEO and Executive Director of Drum Talk TV, and I'm going to bring him on right now. Dan, how are you doing, my buddy?
I'm doing well. How are you? How's everybody out there? Hope everyone's well.
Thank you so much. We have a good crew in the house. I want to give a shout out to Cheryl and Courtney, Mitzi for joining. Mitzi's now watching you, whereas you were watching her earlier.
Yeah. Hi, Mitzi.
So
Great
cool.
story.
Yeah, she's amazing. You know, Dan, I was thinking about it. I was like, you know, we got to tell everybody a little bit about our history together, because I mentioned earlier on the show that you played a really important role in Breast Cancer Can Stick It in the early years, and I'm so very thankful to have met you when I did, and to have been blessed by the things that you provided to us early on. And to be quite honest, when I started thinking about it, I'm like, where did we meet? Was it at NAMM? I'm trying to remember where we actually met. It was no, you know what? We did that interview. That's what it was. We did that interview in 2012, I think, for Drum Talk TV.
It was actually, it would have been 2013, because I started Drum Talk TV January of 2013, 8 years ago last month.
Wow.
And then I was introduced to you via email by Dave Scher of Silver Fox Drumsticks.
There you go. That's right. Yeah. That was
that's how we connected.
For those watching, Silver Fox Drumsticks I was with for like 13 years. And then they kind of moved on, and I switched over to Los Cabos. And so that's crazy. And then that year we did the Drum Talk TV interview, and I had a much shorter hair at that time, I recall, because when I look back on that, I'm like, whoa, because that was only 2 years after I finished chemo.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then later that year, we started working on a big Breast Cancer Can Stick It fundraiser. And this was kind of the beginning of our large fundraising for Breast Cancer Can Stick It. And they started out being held in Corpus Christi, Texas. Right. And that's where we had, Metal Shop has a very large following, and was a great place to put on a Breast Cancer Can Stick It show. And I was like, gosh, it would be so cool if we could have some celebrities involved in this show. And talked to you about being an MC, and you were like, I'm in. And I was like, dude, I got to find some celebrities. It's just going to make the show so much bigger. And you were like, well, let me introduce you to Troy Luccketta. And you hooked me up with him, and I was like, holy crap, because I was a huge Tesla fan growing up. For those watching, Troy Luccketta is the drummer for Tesla. And so, and you introduced me to him, and then I believe you also, in turn, introduced me to Jimmy Deanda. And so you essentially rounded out the entire lineup for our first big Breast Cancer Can Stick It event in October of 2013, man. It's freaking killer.
That was fun. The next year, they were kind enough to come back, and we brought the late, great AJ Pero as well.
Right.
Who sat on my glasses. He jumped up on a speaker that was, if you remember the setup there was like a speaker cabinet. For some reason, there was a speaker cabinet not on the stage whatsoever. Maybe it was extra or something. And I took my glasses off for something and set them on there. And he had jumped up there to sit there for a moment, and my glasses ended up basically under his butt.
They were. I don't even think I knew that story.
Yeah. And I remember flying home. I like to read when I fly if I'm not sleeping, and like my glasses barely stayed on. One lens wasn't in, and it was pretty funny. It's funnier now.
Yeah, it's funnier now. At the time, you're like, dang it.
Yeah, and every year on the anniversary of AJ's passing and his birthday, I played the interview that I did with him in the trailer at that show.
That's so cool. What a great way to honor the memory of AJ Pero. For those watching, AJ was the drummer for Twisted Sister, and also also Dan hooked us up with AJ for the 2014 Breast Cancer Can Stick It event. So very integral to the beginnings of our foundation. Now that was in 2013, 2014, and here we are in 2021. So much has happened since then.
Yeah, then it was the year after that, we brought Vinny and Carmine, well, Vinny Appice and Carmine Apiece.
Right on. And that was for the first ever drumathon in
And Matt
2015.
Starr.
Yep,
Yeah,
and
Matt
Matt Starr.
Starr. And
That was it for that one.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Couldn't make it.
Yeah, it was totally cool. And so you were just very involved right out of the gates. And you're such a, well-known person in the drumming community and through Drum Talk TV. And it's funny because, we've known each other for a while. I've come out and stayed with you out when you were in Vegas, and just lovely family, and just such a great host. And but we never really talked about like how did you first get into drumming and all this stuff. And then I was like, I really want to learn this stuff about Dan. Like, how did it all begin? Like, take us back to when you were a kid.
So half a century and 1 year ago, I can't believe I'm saying that. This April, 51 years ago, I was 7. And I had two older cousins that were 7 years older than me that were into the music scene there. So 1969, we all know what was happening in music in those days. And then another cousin, 14 years older than me. So I was exposed to a lot of Zeppelin and Cream and Deep Purple and the Yardbirds and all that stuff. I grew up in a musical home, not in the sense that my parents were musicians. My dad played around with guitar, but I grew up listening to like the Yardbirds, Cream, Neil Diamond, The Fifth Dimension, Simon and Garfunkel, a lot of stuff that Hal Blaine played on, and I never imagined I'd be interviewing him the same month I turned 50, right after I started Drum Talk TV. But one of those cousins played drums, and I saw him play drums. He sat in with the band at my other cousin's bar mitzvah. He was 13, and I was like right before I turned 7, and I wanted to play the drums. And my parents were crazy enough to say, okay, we'll sign you up for lessons and get you a practice pad. And if you stick with it, we'll get you a drum set. And for my seventh birthday, drummers are supposed to be good at math.
Supposedly.
Yeah, I got a 5-piece kit. My parents were not rich. I don't want anyone to get the wrong idea. Not that there's anything wrong with rich parents, but my parents, when I really think about this, what they must have scraped together to get me a real drum set. It's a Pearl. I still have it. It's part of my big giant blue kit. And I just fell in love with it. But I didn't, for a few years, I never imagined like becoming a drummer, like as a job. I wanted to be an oceanographer. I wanted to be the next Jacques Cousteau. And when I was 14, my dad took me to see Led Zeppelin. I don't know if anyone's heard of them. They were pretty good though. And,
sounds familiar.
yeah, they had some hits.
They had a couple tunes, who knows?
Yeah, and by the 3rd song, I just realized, oh my God, you could do this as a job? Not be Led Zeppelin, but play in a band and get paid, and all these people cheering. It was at the LA Forum in '77. And so when I got my hearing back, I told my parents that's what I want to do. My mom was heartbroken because my first initials are DR for doctor. She was sure I'd be a doctor. So when I said I want to be an oceanographer, scientist, she was thrilled. But now I wanted to be a drummer. But yet they still supported me so much so that a year later, when I was 15, my mom found an audition for what became my first professionally paid gig, which was a tour, playing drums on tour around the United States between the summer and 9th and 10th grade. And that really did it for me. That just really bit me hard. And I came back and started getting in bands. And when I got a little older, tore up and down the Sunset Strip in Hollywood, played everywhere there, even places that aren't there anymore. Later, I got into doing a lot of producing other upcoming bands, and I did a lot of composing music and voice directing for commercials. The music that was played in the intros from a CD I put out in 98 or 99 called Retrofits, and it's 5 classic rock songs I did in big band swing style, and I'm playing drums, singing lead, played piano on a few songs, the two that were in the intro here. And it's been great. It's just been great.
Wow, that's awesome. Are there any bands that people watching might have heard of that you played with, or even maybe just sat in with?
Um, I played air guitar with Foghat about 4 years ago on stage at the Golden Nugget. That's actually
was it an audition?
no, it was actually so I interviewed Roger Earl for the show, and we just became good friends, and his wife Linda Earl, and they ended up becoming a social media marketing client of mine, and I taught Roger Earl's daughter how to do everything, and kind of mentored them, and we just became friends. So they came out to play again and came over for dinner, and we talked about this idea, a contest where everywhere they went on tour, there was a different contest, and the winner could go up and play air guitar on stage. And I said, why don't we do it tonight? And we'll film it, and I'll edit a promo. I'll do all the work. Let me just do this for you so that you have something to promote it for. And Roger said, what song are you thinking of playing air guitar to? And before he finished the sentence, I said, it's got to be Fool for the City. And he slapped his hand on the table and said, that's what I was thinking. So that's what I did. It was so much fun and hilarious, because Foghat Live was a big album for me when it came out, and I think that was 76 or 77. So to become friends with him and have him on the show and then play air guitar with him on stage. And I bought like 50 picks, and I had all these guitar picks in my pocket. So every like third repeat of the riff, I'm throwing a pick out, getting another, playing, and then I'm doing the solo. It was just hilarious. It was so much fun.
That is
But
awesome.
other than that, I played in a band called Opus One that played a lot up and down the Sunset Strip, and we did a lot of gigs with like Motley Crue, Great White, Dokken, Snow, which is where Carlos Cavasaw came from before he replaced Randy Rhoads in Quiet Riot when Randy left to play with Ozzy, and we like everyone were chasing the big record deal. We were on the radio and stuff, had a bunch of self-published stuff, but we didn't get the record deal because, quite frankly, we weren't with the times. This is 1982, 83, 84-ish. And what was happening then was hair metal, spandex, and the skinny ties and new wave. And we were neither of that. We were progressive rock. We were a cross between like Frank Zappa, Supertramp, and Yes, if you could imagine that. And we were freaking, I'm watching myself. I know it's a family show.
You did very good.
Yeah, my wife said, wear your filter when you go on April's show. But we were snobby progressive rock musicians, and if you could dance to it, we weren't going to play it. And for me, it wasn't personally a conscious thing to be snobby like that, but I just loved playing that music, even though I grew up on Zeppelin and Deep Purple, Foghat and all that stuff, Robin Trower, I could go on and on. The other side of me immersed myself in, and I played this stuff in another band, ELP, Genesis, Yes, Zappa, Return to Forever, all this crazy music. So to be in a band playing that stuff, all original music, we had one cover song, and it was the easiest song we played, and it was Limelight by Rush. I don't even remember how or why we chose that song, but that was that was the only one, yeah. So we just were not with it, and like I said, listen to those bands I said we were playing all these gigs with at the Troubadour, Madame Wong's, it was Dokken, it was Great White, it was Quiet Riot, Motley Crue, we were like so far from that. It was like, what the hell are they doing on the same bill with the, and we had a following and all that, but we just weren't a fit. Progressive rock was evaporating in the United States, and it still and was then extremely popular in like Scandinavia, the Netherlands, Norway, Western Europe, Eastern Europe, and all of that. But in America, was all about 4 on the floor, 3-chord power rock or new wave, And the funny thing is, And I want to give this advice not just to musicians, but music fans also. Back then, there was a lot of music going on that you would not catch me listening to. And in fact, I had long hair and stuff, and I had cut my hair. I don't remember why. And I didn't have hair at one time, folks, but I cut my hair, and I showed up for rehearsal at the place we rehearsed at, and the bass player opened the door, took one look at me, and he slammed the door and locked it.
That's the fast way to lose. I had that same thing happen with one of my guitar players. He showed up and he cut his hair, and we were like, what, dude? Like we had to have like a sit down conversation. Are you really serious about being in this band? Because it doesn't appear that you are.
It's funny. So my advice is, there was music then that was becoming really big that there's no way I'd listen to Tears for Fears or the B-52s. I was even, believe it or not, I'm embarrassed to say this, when they first came out, I was averse to the Police even though there were a couple songs I really dug, and I loved Stewart's playing and all that, and Sting sounded just like Chris Squire to me, his singing. But so now, fast forward, the best of B-52s is like my #1 go-to road trip CD. I love Tears for Fears. And
these are not bands for some reason that I would have like looked at you and thought, just from you talking, these would be your go-tos. That's crazy. I mean, those are great groups. Yeah.
And like Sowing the Seeds of Love is a great example, because Manu Katché is playing drums on a bunch of songs. Phil Collins is playing drums on a bunch of songs. That's where I discovered one of my favorite vocalists ever, let alone my favorite female vocalist, and that's Oleta Adams, who's an amazing singer, amazing musician. She's about 5'1", skinny, and just sings like, oh my God, she's just amazing and an incredible range. So when I grew up, I broadened my horizons, and I listened to all this stuff with new ears. And for drummers, other musicians, and even music fans, listen to stuff that you think is not within the same scope or palette that you normally paint your musical sensibilities with, because we have to remember, just like whatever it is you're into, whether it's metal, whether it's rock, listen to who your heroes listened to, and listen to who they listened to, so you understand the history of all this stuff.
Yeah, like how it evolved and the progression of that music. Yeah.
Yeah, and that new wave stuff, and the Police and Tears for Fears and B-52s wasn't part of the history of who I listened to. It was a side thing that branched out that I just wanted nothing to do with. But then, as like I said, grew up a little bit, my sensibilities broadened and everything. I love that music. It's fun music, and the Police reunion tour and documentary concert is just unbelievable. It's great. Same thing with Tears for Fears. I love going down to my studio and just playing all that stuff, just for fun, as much as I love playing Carnival 9 by ELP or whatever.
That's so cool. How often do you get to go and just jam out? Do you find time every day, or is it not as often anymore? I know you're super busy.
Yeah, that's a great question. I go in spurts. I'm supposed to, so I don't know if you know this, but I'll tell you why I'm supposed to play every day. A year ago last July, so July 2019, I was diagnosed with extremely advanced diabetes out of the blue. Had no idea, no symptoms. I mean, I shouldn't say that. I don't have the typical physical makeup of someone with diabetes, but I had all kinds of symptoms, never put it all together. And so exercise is very important. So Enja is really good about saying, did you play today? Are you going to play today? So yeah. I try to play almost every day. I'd say at least 4 or 5 times a week. And you know what? Because I'm so busy, sometimes it's like 11 at night, or it's 1 in the morning. And it's like, you know what? I feel like playing. I play for the show when I do Dan's almost daily vlog on Drum Talk TV. But I play other stuff and different versions of stuff, because when I do it on the show, because it's through Facebook Live, I try to play the bootleg version so it doesn't get snagged by the algorithm. But when I'm just, like Enja says, playing with myself, I can play to the actual official releases and hear it better and all of that. And so I try to do it a few times a week.
I think It's so awesome that you just tapped into something that I love talking about, and that is how much cardio you can get from playing drums. People don't realize how much of a workout it is, and you can, just like if you're jogging, you can jog, just kind of a slow jog, or you can jog
That's
where you're
right.
just like working harder, and so with drumming, you could just be boom tapping along, or you could be slamming. And with all your might, you could play really fast stuff. You could play really slow stuff. You could play really slow stuff heavy. You could play really fast stuff light. There's all these different ways that you can play to exercise. And in fact, you and I are on the same exercise program with drumming, because I've really made a commitment to myself to make sure that I am drumming every day as well as a form of exercise. And I try to do other exercise as well if I have time. But it is great. And, if you have a Fitbit or whatever and you're a drummer, watch that thing, man. When you're drumming, it's crazy. That thing will light up. It'll burn right off your wrist. You're going to be working out so hard. So it's a really great thing. I remember some gigs I get 26,000 steps, and just blow up on on my zone time would be 3 hours in the zone, in the calorie burn zone. And so it's really great workout, really phenomenal workout. So is there anything else that you do outside of that as a workout, or more so? Sorry, I thought of something else, because I one of the things that I'm really bad about, Dan, is like when I get up my drum set, like doing some kind of a warm up before I jump in there. Sometimes I'll be like, hey, I'm gonna play this song that goes go 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 da, 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 and I'll just jump in, and I'm like, oh, I wish I hadn't done that. So two questions there. Yeah,
warm up and cool down. It is.
Yeah.
But the other things I do is I like to walk, but when I don't walk, or if the weather is real cold or something, we recently got it's interesting. It's a stepper, but it's also a treadmill. So there's a left side and a right side, and you can step up and down, and they both have belts. Change the incline. It's really neat.
That's super cool.
Yeah. So I've been getting into that, and we recently, I'm into chopping firewood and sawing firewood by hand. So I collect down and dead wood, and then I have this massive, really big, probably can't, I got the monitor here. It won't fit on the screen, but I have this really, really big saw. The blade is like almost 3 feet long, and the teeth are like this, and I could saw through some gnarly ass wood.
Wow.
And then we recently built a wall that has 3 angles to it that are like 18, 45, and 30 feet, 8 feet tall or 10 feet tall, whatever it is. And we built it out of pallet wood. And Enja got me this tool that's called a pallet buster that breaks up pallets with conserving as much of the wood intact as possible. So I've been doing that for like maybe 4 months altogether. We started collecting pallets and then started breaking them up. We just finished the wall, so now we're going to power wash it and clear coat it. But that project lasted like 4 months of a good workout, about 2 days out of the week. So that was fun. But now I still have all these extra pallets, and we're starting to build planters and all this stuff. And I still got a ton of firewood to cut. So I love that because I don't get out enough. This is the 3rd place we've lived where my office has no windows.
Oh no! That's the worst.
Every few hours, I literally get up and I go outside for 15 minutes.
You're like, get me out.
Walk around,
That's funny. Well, so we've talked about Dan the drummer, Dan the exercise meister guy, and the big one we need to talk about for sure is Drum Talk TV. And I know you also have, gosh, you have so many sides. You have your social media classes that you put on, and I definitely want to talk a little bit about that. But I definitely want to make sure, because we've never talked about it. Again, it's another thing where it's like I've known you all these years, but I've never like sat down and gone, hey Dan, like, why the hell did you come up with Drum Talk TV? So Dan, why the hell did you come up with Drum Talk TV? How did all that happen, man?
So I kind of didn't. Enja kind of did, actually. So the way it happened was I started out having an online lessons platform called Dan's Drum Clinics. And about 5 months into that, I just had this idea, and I was getting ready to go. We were in Vegas. I was getting ready to go see my sons in San Diego. And I had set up 2 meetings with 2 friends of mine that played drums and stuff. And I had this idea to interview other drummers and drumming educators. And my idea was that we can learn from each other's perspectives based on our unique experiences, not just learn at a drum set or a snare drum or a practice pad. I learn from each other's conversations. So I'm getting ready to go see Steve and Alex, and I have my Pelican cases stacked by the door with my gear. And Enja says, what's all that? And I said, oh, on the way to see Steve and Alex, I'm gonna stop in Temecula and visit so-and-so and so-and-so and do a couple of interviews. And she said, what do you mean interviews? And I kind of told her my idea, and her face lit up. And she said, that's what you should be doing. I said, what? She said, the interviews. I said, it's just a separate thing on the website called, I don't know, Drum Talk. And she said, no, you should be doing this, because she saw me do interviews in another life. I did interviews in the charter yacht industry and yacht racing in Australia. I directed an online news show, did interviews, all this stuff. And I'm like, no, woman, it's all about the drum lessons. This is just an extra thing. Went about my business, came back. We watched those, and the whole time she's saying, this is great, this is what you should be doing. I showed it to a friend of mine, he said the same thing. He showed it to a friend of his in TV who called me out of the blue, and basically in a nutshell, he said, no offense, but the drum lessons are watering it down. You should just do interviews. He said, he says, what's it called right now? I said, Drum Talk. He says, dude, just do the interviews and call it, I don't know, Drum Talk TV or something. And Enja was saying, see, so at the urging of Enja, really, I did a couple interviews while I still had Dan's drum clinics. I did Glenn Sobel and Brian Tichy were my first interviews. And then I ended up closing Dan's drum clinics that December, and January 6th of 2013, I officially opened Drum Talk TV as an LLC, which is now a C Corp. And that's how it all started. And my idea was also, at that point, when I decided, okay, I'm gonna do this, I wanted to do interviews with drummers and percussionists that were not just educators, but that were artists in all genres of music, everything from classic rock to jazz to world percussion to symphonic. I mean, on and on and on. I really wanted to live up to the name and the tagline, which is the heartbeat of the global drumming community. And it wasn't just, if it was the Dan Shinder show, it would be like a 20th of the topics. You know, it would be just my BS that I like, but it's not. It's built for anybody that loves any type of drumming and percussion. There's something for everybody. And it's broadened my horizons, actually, because one of the other things we do is we curate content from our fans from over 130 countries. So there's a lot of different things to get exposed to. Just a quick note, I don't know if you know this, but the social media company I opened later that first year was born out of the success of Drum Talk TV. When Lori Shue pointed out to me from a third-party statistical company that we were achieving 900% more online reach and engagement than all of our industry peers.
See,
That's a fluffy word.
Yeah, but I want you to say that again so everybody can hear it. So, that 900%, say it again, man. That's awesome.
Yeah, thanks. In the first year, we were achieving 900% more online reach and engagement than Drum Magazine, Modern Drummer Magazine, Tom Tom Rhythm, Drumhead, Drum Channel, Drummer World, all the other media companies combined without ever spending money on advertising or boosting posts, just with my own strategies I developed for social media marketing and growing the company. And when she pointed that out, I thought, wow, I got to teach this to other people. And I started teaching it in the music industry to brands, to other to educators, to gold and platinum artists, up and coming artists. And then I branch out and I still do that, but I also teach it to leaders in real estate, dental tech. I've worked with Ford dealerships. It just goes on and on and on. I've been invited to speak at the NAMM show. The last, this show was virtual, but it was the 7th year in a row that they asked me to speak on social media marketing at NAM University. So that's like a whole other business. I don't know how, but I have 2 full-time jobs. I work 60 hours a week at both of them. I don't know how that math works out, but
No
it's fun.
sleep. It works out to
Yeah.
no sleep and some drumming.
Yeah, exactly. And cutting some wood.
Right, exactly. Wow,
Yeah,
that's so
but
crazy.
that's kind of the story of how it started, and of course it has, developed a bit. We started. Let me think. When did we? Well, you actually were the first. I think you were the first documentary we did when we came out, and I did the interview and did that film and all that stuff. I think that might have been our first documentary.
Man, and it was so cool. I believe it's still out there on your website, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then I did 2 documentaries with Billy Cobham a year ago this past. So what year would that have been? 2019. We did 2 documentaries on taiko drumming in Japan. Enja went with me, and it's like a travel music documentary. We did the documentary on taiko drumming, but we take you to some real historic places in Japan, 800-year-old castles. We talk about the food. We go to a botanical garden. We've been to Singapore 3 times for the Singapore Drum Fest and did those documentaries and coverage and some other things and stuff. And so it's evolved and morphed, and it's grown, and I love it. It's my baby.
Man, it's really amazing when you think about how quickly you guys were able to, or you were able to achieve such huge success, because, saying that Drum Talk TV started in 2013 essentially, and, Breast Cancer Can Stick It started, I think our Facebook opened up probably 2011, 2012, and I just was like, you were a blur flying past me, and most people, for that matter, with the success you achieved with the following of over 1 million people is so stinking cool. And Lori was right; you were totally onto something, and to be able to share that experience and expertise is amazing. You mentioned that the first interviews that you did for Drum Talk TV were Glenn Sobel and Brian Tichy. How did you get in with this crowd? Is that just from your playing in California, or how did that happen?
So the way it went down was when I was sort of like kind of trying to embrace the idea of leaving Dan's Drum Clinics behind and start this Drum Talk TV thing as its own thing. Okay, so rewind to October of 2012. I was invited to play at Alice Cooper's Christmas pudding show, and I didn't know Glenn, who plays for Alice Cooper. And Philip Gelb, who of Phoenix Drum Company, was invited, and they used his kit as the backline kit. And then the what is it called? Bear with me. It's called total senior moment. Solid Rock Foundation that
Gotcha.
Alice Cooper has in Phoenix. Yeah, they were doing this big performance, and it involved taiko drums and all this. So they asked Philip and I to play drum set each on stage, while all these taiko drummers and other hand drummers and these kids that were dancing and all that stuff. And I met Michael, Glenn's tech, Michael Miller, and he said, oh, so do you know Glenn? And I said, no. And he says, oh, I'll introduce you, he'll be here later. And we actually didn't meet until the day of the show. And so he introduced us, and I said, hey, do you want to come on and on the show? And he said, sure. So I interviewed Glenn. I remember Enja and I were on like a little mini vacation in not Valley of Fire. Wow, I feel like such a ding dong. I can't. Enja, if you're watching, come to my office.
Yeah, message us somewhere, Enja.
Oh, Mesquite. We were in Mesquite, Nevada at a hotel, and Glenn was at home, and I interviewed him, like this. And then he introduced me to Brian Tichy, and that's how I interviewed the two of them. Then when I decided to officially start Drum Talk TV, that was 2 weeks before the 2013 NAMM show. and Noel Kim, who produced all the Bonzo Bashes, who I met through Brian Tichy, said, you can cover are you covering the NAMM show? And I said, what does that mean? And I knew what the NAMM show was, but what do you mean cover? She says, we're a media company. You should get a media pass and cover it. I'm like, really? I can do that? She said, yeah. So I looked into it. I got approved. And it was me and one other guy, showed him how to use the video camera in the parking lot. And I interviewed my very first interview there was, we went into the Yamaha booth and Tommy Aldridge was there, one of my favorite rock drummers. And
That's awesome.
Tommy.
I remember, I think we were, I want to say, remember that? We were trying to figure it out because I was over there at the same time and we went back and looked through pictures to try and see if you were in the picture because I was over there at that same time, but we didn't meet then. We remembered that later, and I was like, did you take the picture for me? Because I had somebody take the picture and not remember who it was.
Right. I remember that. And
crazy.
Yeah, I remember that. It was me. And Tommy was just so gracious. And then I met, I interviewed Nico McBrain for the first time there. I interviewed late, great Frankie Banali. I chased down Gavin Harrison. I saw him walk by and I told my friend, wait, I'll be right back. And I ran after Gavin and gave him my card, introduced myself. And he says, yeah, meet me in the Sonar booth at 2 o'clock. I got a new snare drum. And it just all kind of fell together. And then it was that April that I got an introduction to Hal Blaine through somebody. And Hal invited us out to interview him at his house in Palm Desert. And that was the week of my 50th birthday, so beginning of April, and became great friends with Hal. And I actually did his last interview a month before he passed away. On the way home from the NAMM show, went to his house again, interviewed him, and it just all, I just kept building on it and contacting people and got other introductions. And the last 3 years we've had a booth, not this year, the previous 3 years we had a booth at the NAMM show. Last year we gave away our first 2 Drum Talk TV awards, which is something I always dreamed of, always wanted to do. There's actually pictures of that in that intro that you played. The first award was to Alan White for the Prague Legacy Award. And I've known Alan since long before I thought of Drum Talk TV. 1989, I met Alan White. And then the Rock Legacy Award went to Carmine Appice, who's been very supportive from the very first year of Drum Talk TV. I met him at that same first NAMM show. And my friend Philip, again, pointed him out, said, hey, across the way over at the Istanbul booth is Carmine. You should go talk to him. And I was like, I don't know if I want to bother him. And I had met him years ago. And I went over and I said, hi, Carmine, my name's Dan Shinder. I'm with Drum Talk TV. He said, who? I said, Drum Talk TV, we're a media company. He said, I don't care. He was totally messing with me. And I said, hey, in 1984, he said, I don't remember. I said, in 1984, I went to Guitar Center when it was on Ventura Boulevard in Sherman Oaks, the old one. I had a ride cymbal under my arm. You had hi-hats under your arm. We were both there to trade each in for the other thing. And I have your hi-hat still. And he kind of like remembered that. And I said, we do an interview. And he was kind of like, yeah, I don't know if I want to get up. And he said, who else have you had on the show? And I rifled off all these names, Brian Tichy, Glenn Soley. He says, I've had them on. I don't want to be on. So long story short, he said, okay, let's go. I said, we can do it right here. You don't have to.
Come on, man. Give me an inch.
And that's how it went down. So then I sat with him and did it right there with him in the booth. And he has been such a great friend and a supporter ever since. The next time we exchanged numbers and I called him not long after that and said, hey, I want to do a full-length interview with you. I'm coming out to LA for a couple weeks to go to Remo and do this and that. And, can we meet somewhere? He says, why don't you just come to my house? And I said, where do you live? At the time, he was living up kind of near Magic Mountain in Valencia. And I said, are you sure that's okay? He says, yeah, that's okay. So Lori and I went out and I did this kind of famous interview with him on his big, bright red couch and talked about his whole history. And again, he's just been really supportive. That's not why we gave him that award. We gave him that award because he wrote one of the most popular books ever on rock drumming. He's been such an influence, playing everything from with Beck Bogart and Apis to writing a couple of Rod Stewart's biggest hits with him and playing through those years in the 80s, to Vanilla Fudge, to Cactus, to Ted Nugent, to Ozzy Osbourne. I mean, Pink Floyd even. He's on The Delicate Sound of Thunder. He plays on a couple songs, believe it or not. And he's just a huge ambassador to rock drumming and rock music, and really, in a lot of ways, the whole rock and roll persona, you know. And so the last NAMM show that we gave those 2 awards was really kind of some big choke up moments for me. And as you know, both those last 2 shows, I had as many members as we could gather from Drummer Girls United.
Yep, I was going to bring that up too. And those watching, there's a great Facebook group called Drummer Girls United, led by Tammy Mitchell Woods. Yes, yeah. and Dan is one of our, I think you're a token dude in that group. I don't think there's any other men, maybe even in there. But it's over 6,000 female drummers in that group, all over the world, coming together for a common goal of female drumming. And yeah, Dan has been a huge supporter, and we were all crammed in your booth, 2 years ago now.
Oh gosh,
so fun.
The first time we did it, there were like 40 ladies there of all ages. And then the last time, there was about a good 27 or something like that jammed in the booth. And I do kind of like, as you remember, a group interview thing, you know, and it's a lot of fun. I'm very supportive. You know, I had a mom, and my mom worked. I have a sister, she works. Have a wife, she's a very ambitious entrepreneur. Between the 2 of us, 6 of our kids are daughters, and they're all grown women. And out of our 19 grandkids, about half of them are females. I'm just a huge proponent of, you know, women having a fair chance at everything and not being put in a box. One of my favorite, you're not supposed to have favorite clients, but one of my favorite clients is Open Road Girl, which is an all-female motorcycle riding association. Shout out to Melinda Johnson in Florida, who started this thing. And I, you know, when I met her, that really resonated with me because of what I've done in the music community and drumming for women. And it just feels good to help them grow their brand as well, and remove any stigmas. You know, imagine that women who ride motorcycles have kind of been faced with some of the same nonsense women who play drums. I mean, after all, drums is a male's instrument, right?
Right. It's that male-dominated world that both of those things fall into. Yeah.
Right. Girls shouldn't ride motorcycles or play drums or football or baseball or any of that. Just play the flute and play with glitter. And shut up, right?
Oh my gosh, no.
Yeah. So
flute.
I've always wanted to do what I can to help burst that bubble for those who are behind the times, or you know, sometimes it's a cultural thing. There's people that migrate to the United States from other cultures where there's still a lot of oppression in a lot of countries in Asia, in North Africa, which is the Middle East, and you know, all over. And it's amazing when you think about it. Here in 2021, I remember, wasn't it only about a year and a half ago that in the United Arab Emirates, I think it was finally approved for women can get a driver's license. And the country, I mean, the men, excuse me, were losing their bleep there, wore the filter. You know, it was like there was this huge it was like, oh my God, you know, and to think of that in this day and age is just like unbelievable. But even saying that about things such as this in those regions, even right here at home in the West, as far west as you can get other than Hawaii and whatnot, you know, there's still these stigmas about women doing certain things, whether it's driving a truck, being in construction, playing drums, you know, playing different sports or whatever. And I've never been one to use the big following or popularity or Drum Talk TV as a platform for political reasons, but from the very first year of Drum Talk TV, it was one of my goals to use it as a platform to feature female drummers as equally as I would feel. Like I don't have a ratio. There's no ratio, like, okay, how many female drummers do we have booked this month to feature, whether it's an interview? There's no equation like that. I don't, they're drummers.
Yeah,
You're all
exactly. Yeah,
drummers.
that's exactly the way I think of it too. Is we all need to be considered equally, and so anytime you see a great female drummer or a drummer out there that you want to feature, you feature them. It's not because they're a female drummer; it's because they're a drummer you want to feature. You know
They
what I
have
mean?
something to offer. Yeah,
Yeah.
everyone's got a story, and everyone has skills that we can all learn from, no matter where they are in that journey of their skills, no matter what kind of music they play, no matter what their musical sensibilities. If anyone on the receiving end to an interview or watching a video of someone play music has an open mind, there's always something to learn. If you go back to what I was saying about the music that I was so averse to growing up in the 80s when I had my professional career, and now it's like, oh my God, I love that stuff. Playing the beat to the B-52s is like, you have to be a timekeeping machine to play that stuff. There's so little room for error. When you're playing progressive rock, yeah, there's some weird time signatures and all kinds of chops involved, but there's so much more room for, I don't like to use the word error, but you know what I mean. There's more wiggle room because there's more going on. You would think it would be the opposite, but if you're playing something with a lot of space to it, like Pink Floyd on anything from Dark Side of the Moon forward, or Beatles, that's so difficult to play, as is stuff like the B-52s, where there's very little drum
Right.
fills and there's more. So my point is that if you have like, let me grab this and let me grab one of these. Back in the day before video,
what is that, man? Did you find that on a archaeological dig somewhere?
I did. You wouldn't know unless you knew the band or saw a picture or read the liner notes. You don't know if it's a man or a woman playing drums on this, and it doesn't matter. Same thing with this, and this happens to be a woman. This is a CD from Maytal Cohen that she gave me, and if you didn't know, you wouldn't know. So why does it matter? And it's almost sort of the same thing, if I may go off on just a little tangent, sort of the same thing when I see drummers criticize other drummers for things like their setup, everything from their setup to their hair, to their posture. And unfortunately, I do see drummers, men, more critical of women's postures and the body physiology and all of that. But none of that matters. It all comes down to the ears. It's music. And it's nice to see a show. It's nice to see a concert, but it all starts as an audio experience first. And when I see people making fun of the way someone's holding a stick, or their setup, or what they're wearing, or their hair, or lack of hair, how's that dude's beard holding on to his head? There's no hair. It's like, would a blind person care?
Right.
It's all about the music.
It is. It is. You're so right. And Dan, I have to wrap us up here. I'm sorry. I know we're getting at the top of the hour. We have another podcast starting here in about 15 minutes over on Clubhouse, and I hope people can join us there. We're going to be talking about drummers, drumming, drum gear, everything over on Clubhouse. Find us at April Samuels. And dude, I'm gonna ask you one last question, because I don't want to leave without asking you this. Yeah. What do we have to look forward to coming up here real soon from Drum Talk TV?
Let me think of something real quick that I can actually mention. I have some new interviews lined up. We had a great January. I have some new interviews lined up for this month. That includes Helly. Do you all know Helly? Alyssa Montan from Italy. She's an amazing metal and techno drummer. She's on the 17th. And then Don Perry of Jethro Tull joins us again this month. A couple other people. I've got a few other big things planned, but most of all, more and more videos and even interviews with fans of Drum Talk TV. And if I could please just give a shout out to my social media company. If anyone wants to learn how I did all this without spending money, you can go to socialmediamarketingformusicians.com. I've got a few books that tell you different aspects, or if you want to take a deep dive and take a course with me, go to advancedsocialmarketing.com, pop me a note, or just write me through the Drum Talk TV website, whatever, And real exciting stuff, real exciting stuff. We'll have you on again as well.
That's awesome. I would love to come on again, Dan, and we'll be sure and share those links in the broadcast here, and as well as on our YouTube channel when we break this out as an interview for our YouTube at youtube.com/breastcancercanstick, and you will have all of your social media links there, your websites and everything. And man, I hate to, it's like I could talk to you for days, dude. Like, I feel like we've only scratched the surface, dude. Like, we could talk about so much more stuff, for real.
Yeah, well, thanks for touching on what we did touch on. And it was a thrill to be on, and I hope everybody enjoyed it and got something out of it. And my title for Drum Talk TV gets longer and longer. It's now currently, officially, it's the founder, CEO, executive producer, and cat litter box changer.
See, I missed that when we were promoting the show. I totally didn't know about that new gig, man. Cat litter box changer. That's awesome, man.
Yeah, very important.
Well, thank you so much, Dan, for being here. I really appreciate it. It's so great to see you. So awesome to catch up. And I just want to thank you one last time for everything that you've done for Breast Cancer Can Stick It. We simply wouldn't be where we are today without your encouragement and support in the early days. So thank you from the bottom of my heart, man. I love you to death. Tell AJ hello for me, and I hope to see you really soon.
You too. Say hi to Mary and her parents, please.
Will do. Take care, honey.
Okay. Thanks.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, everybody, that was Dan Shinder from Drum Talk TV. We're going to pop...